Hi, I'm Rappler Entertainment Editor Marguerite De Leon, and welcome to the latest episode of Rappler Talk Entertainment. Today we have a very special guest, musician, podcaster, and all-around entertainer, Eric Nam. Welcome, Eric.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Okay, so let's get right to it.
Yeah.
So your career began because you did a YouTube cover of
Yeah.
21's Lonely back in 2012, which
Yeah.
was like an
Forever ago.
yeah, right. So back then, YouTube wasn't as saturated
Hmm.
with like musicians who were trying to make it,
Yeah.
and now it's basically where a lot of people start
Hmm.
their careers. So what have you observed from how the platform was back then to how it is now as a musician?
Yeah, I mean, I think I started putting up covers in 2000, maybe seven, 2006, maybe. And so I was very early to putting covers of myself. I'm saying this smiling because it's so cringy to think about and talk about. But yeah, I was really young and um, at the time I had like 10,000 subscribers, 20,000. And at the time it was like such a big deal.
Right.
And then it's changed obviously a lot when you have billions of people on YouTube now, so much content, so many creators. So I think it is a lot more difficult to get discovered now just for singing.
Right.
There's a lot of competition. There's also a lot of incredibly talented people out there in the world. And so I imagine that's probably the biggest way that it's changed. And also, all of these social media platforms have these algorithms that nobody really understands, but we try our best. And I think that's just like, the homework that we have to do to try to give it everything the best shot. But I imagine a lot of the discovery is now happening on TikTok, I guess, these days when it comes to new singers.
So K-pop, like most pop music, it's always centered on what's fresh and new. And you've been in this industry for quite a while. So like what's the secret to your longevity?
The secret to my longevity, I think it's this a perseverance and an authenticity that I think. To be honest, it's every time I do an album or every time I put out a project, I think I have this question of like, is this the last one? Do I have any more? Because it was really dependent on how these projects perform, whether or not we're able to keep going.
Right.
For actually a lot of artists. And so it can be a little bit daunting, but in order to persevere, it's this, I think for me, like this inner drive to make it and will things to work. So it's certainly doesn't come easy. But also I think when it comes to the music that I do and the content that I create, so much of it is about, I think, being as honest as I can and being very transparent about the process, but also the thinking behind it and also the creative. And so, whereas a lot of musicians might just give you a finished product, I think I take a lot of people on the journey of the entire process. And so that may be, for me, one of the reasons that people really support and understand where I'm coming from, which I really appreciate them taking that ride with me.
So I mean, fast forward to the day and K-pop is a global juggernaut.
Yeah.
Including in the US, and you were born and raised there,
Yeah.
right? So, what is the difference between US K-pop fans and like Korean K-pop fans, and what do you think makes like US K-pop fans so hooked to the genre?
I honestly don't know. I can't speak onto like the difference of the fans. And I think it's not even just a US thing. I think it's a global thing where globally so many people are in love with K-pop. And I think obviously, the music, the performances, all that kind of stuff, that's just kind of a given. It's like a baseline for K-pop. If your music isn't good, if your choreography isn't good, then like it's hard to survive.
Yeah.
So it just has to be good. And so I think that's like obviously a baseline. But I think one of the things is like there's a sense of connection that K-pop brings to a lot of people. There's this sense of artists willing to really commit the time and the energy to creating a lot of content for their followers around the world, but also showing sides of themselves that maybe perhaps a lot of Western celebrities would not and are not willing to do. And also there's a community between fans, which I think is
Right.
incredibly important. I think every fandom has their own personality, and their own culture, and you find a sense of belonging and community within those fandoms, which I think is really great for people around the world. I also think that the one thing that K-pop, and not just K-pop, but Korea does really well in general is attention to detail and high production value. So when you look at a music video, when you look at a Korean TV show or a movie or a drama or a commercial, Korea is able to create things that visually are incredible. And there's a lot of attention to detail when it comes to small things, from styling to hair and makeup to just small things that I don't think Korea is really, you can beat Korea in that in some ways right now. And so when you put all those factors together, you have products and you have content and music and videos that really raise the bar and set a standard that I think so many other people are now trying to get to. And so perhaps that's just another one of the reasons why K-pop is doing so well.
Yeah. I'm just curious because you mentioned like how fandoms have different personalities. Like, how would you describe your fans?
My fans, I think, are perhaps the nicest, kindest, most inclusive fans out there. Like, I think everybody's very nice.
Yeah.
Even when I debuted in Korea, there was a big, I was always told like, oh, fans follow the personality of their artist.
Yeah.
And it sounds so lame and cheesy for me to say this myself, but like, I've always noticed that my fans, even in Korea or wherever, are just like so nice and thoughtful. That's probably the best way to describe them: thoughtful and inclusive and nice.
So it's a reflection of your
I'd
character.
like to think so. I hope so. Yeah.
All right. So you've recently done really well in the podcast space with K-pop Debak, and it's considered one of the top podcasts of 2019 by both Apple and Spotify. So what's the best part of podcasting, and what's the most challenging aspect of it?
I think the best part is that you are able to just have conversation and just talk without having to do anything crazy. Like, just really, I get to ask questions and I'm just curious about the other person. The most challenging right now is just scheduling.
Right. Yeah.
And also just, we work a lot with incredible musicians and idols, but understandably, a lot of labels and management are very cautious when it comes to what goes out there. And so, we started in 2019, it's 2023. We've been doing Dive Studios for 4 years now. So over the 4 years, I think we've really built our own system and filter of like, okay, we can put this out safely, we can put this out, we can cut this out, that kind of thing. But getting to that point was difficult because, again, I like to be pretty honest and just pretty like open about things. Sure. Not everybody's like that, which is totally fine, and you have to accept that and embrace that. And so I think that was one of the hardest parts. And then there was also a point where, because podcasting is so new to Korea, was so new to Korea when we started. 2019, all the podcasts were just very political, journalistic types of podcasts. So people didn't understand what I was doing. People didn't understand what I was doing. And so when we were trying to get guests, they'd be like, we don't know, like, what is this? Now we're on our 4th year where we have an incredible inbound traffic, almost like a waiting list of people wanting to come on, which is incredible. But getting to this point was really hard.
Of course.
So we're very grateful, and we try our best to show as much love to as many people as possible.
Like, off the top of your head, like, what's one of your most memorable episodes?
One of my most memorable episodes, I think, in one interview I said Jackson was one of my favorite, Jackson Wang, because he was so honest, and the interview went on for so long. I was like, Jackson, please leave. Like, please go home. And he was like, no, I want to hang out. I was like, go home. I'm so tired. I have to pack and I have to leave. I have to get on a flight. And he would not leave. So that was a fun interview, and he was very raw and honest with me, which I really appreciated. Another one that comes to mind is Jessie. She too was just so honest.
Right.
And for her, she's like, this is so boring. Like, why are we doing this? I was like, Jessie, people want to know you. Because Jessie's known for, she's funny, she's loud, she's unabashedly Jesse, which I think is great. But I wanted people, and I personally wanted to understand more of Jesse as just a person.
Right.
Like, what makes you tick? What makes you happy? And all that kind of stuff. And she, again, was so honest and vulnerable in that conversation. So I think those are the types of conversations that I really value and I appreciate, because it demonstrates that these artists trust me in a way to be like, oh, we could talk about this in a safe way, which means a lot.
So let's get into your new album, House on a Hill. After years under your music label, you've gone independent in 2021. So House on a Hill is your third all-English full-length album. So it's coming out in September. And how has it been? How has it been as an independent artist, for one?
Yeah. The album comes out September 8th. It's called House on a Hill. And it is packed full of emotional, fun, dramatic songs. Like you said, I have been an independent artist for a few years now. It's fun. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's not easy when you go from having a massive system behind you to pretty much, really when I think about it, my team is very lean and very small. We have a lot of people who support on the sides when it comes to album mode, but at the core, we're a very lean team. And so it's a challenge because at the end of the day, all the risk and everything kind of lands on me as a person, as an artist, as the head of, I guess, a label, which only has myself, so it's not that big of a deal. Whereas before, it was just like, I'm just another member of like a big thing, and I just focus on whatever I need to do.
Right.
So it's a little bit more challenging. It's a little more scary. You know, if a tour doesn't go well or if an album doesn't do well, like I was saying earlier, it's like, oh, will I be able to put out another album? Will I be able to put out another tour? Like, those are the first thoughts that really come to mind, and that's a different dynamic. But having said that, I think there is an incredible sense of responsibility. There is a sense of, hey, if I can set myself and my team up right, then we can do whatever we want and be as creative and as flexible and have as much fun as possible, which is not always the case with a major label. And so there's pros and cons to both. It's not easy, it's not for the faint of heart, but for me, I think it was the right choice and something that challenges me and encourages me to grow on a daily basis. So yeah.
Awesome. So let's talk about this latest album. Like, how did it come about? What was the seed?
So the album is called House on a Hill. The first two singles, were also called House on a Hill. So it's a little confusing to people. I should have thought of that the other way. But pretty much the reason it's called that is because that's what kind of started this entire cascade effect of how we wrote the entire album. I wanted to buy a house, and I was looking for a house, and I thought I found the perfect one. And I didn't end up getting it, but it made me start to question and think about all the different things that come with buying a house. Because in America particularly, everybody says if you ever get money, you buy real estate. You buy a house because that's the best way to accumulate wealth and blah, 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 blah. And it made me wonder, like, why do I want a house? Is it because it's a status symbol? Is it because I feel successful? Does it give me a sense of identity or a physical location to call my own? And does it make me happier? And I think that was the question that really struck at me. It's like, what is going to make me happier? Or what makes me happy? What makes us happy? And so, you know, there are a lot of lyrics in that song that are just very direct to that point. You know, it's, what if happiness isn't what I thought? What if I already have everything that I ever needed? And when is more and more and more and more enough? These are just like basic questions that I think I was having at the time. So that was the first single. And then we're like, oh, this is like an interesting angle where it's very introspective. We're asking these questions that nobody really has an answer to, but everybody struggles with. What is happiness? What do we strive for? Why do we live? And these emotions that make us feel sometimes alone, sometimes sad, sometimes elated and happy. And so that's kind of what inspired like all these other songs. So the next song that comes out August 11th is called Don't Leave Yet, which is like a dance. I was like, let's do a dance song.
Right.
We're like, yeah, but like, how do we make a dance song very Eric Nama, very emotional? And so it's called Don't Leave Yet because in the same way we're being introspective, like I always find myself, like if I go out with friends, there's always somebody who doesn't want to go home. it could be me sometimes. It's like they're avoiding a bad situation at home.
Yeah.
They don't want to be in the car ride alone because they
Right.
feel lonely.
Right.
Or they don't want to see their roommate because they're fighting, like whatever it may
Yeah.
be. And it's giving yourself permission to say, no matter what you're going through, it's giving the permission to say, no matter what you're going through, it's okay, let's just like dance it off kind of thing. And so those are the very introspective kind of moments that we focused in on for this album. And I think it kind of carries through thematically through the entire thing. And it kind of like, peaks on September 8th, which is when the album drops, with the song called Only for a Moment, which we did with this British duo called Han. And it's the most different sonically from all the other songs, and anything I've done in the past. But I was in London going to Han's studio on the train, and I was looking out and I came up with this melody, and I was like, oh, that's like a really nice melody. What should we write it about? And it was just like trying to be present in that moment on the subway, just enjoying that moment, and then thinking, what if somebody walked into those doors and that was the person that I was gonna spend the rest of my life? Just like the infinite possibilities that happen.
Yeah.
So a lot of I think, very lyrically deep, thoughtful songs that all started at House on a Hill. So, sorry, that was a very long answer, but that's what the album is.
Awesome. I mean, so you mentioned like buying a house. That's a very adult thing
Yeah.
to do. So like, it's clearly you're in a stage where maybe you're kind of maybe settling down, or you're in that particular stage where you're thinking about these kinds of
Yeah.
things. So it makes me curious, like, how would you describe the Eric Nam from the beginning of your career to how you are now, since you've been so...
Oh, man. Well, how do I describe myself from then and now? I mean, I think that's a hard question. Let me think. I think when you start something in creative, you don't understand or realize like how difficult it's going to be.
Yeah.
For many reasons.
Right.
But I think when I was younger, I had this like naivete where it's like anything's possible. And I do believe that. But it's just like, now when I do it, there's a deep breath. Okay, anything is possible.
Right.
Whereas when I was younger, it's like,
Yeah.
anything is possible. And now
Yeah.
it's like, okay, anything's possible.
Yeah.
So I think I still have the drive and the ambition and the optimism to say, like, we're going to make things work. And I don't think that has changed, and that is unwavering. And that's just how I live my life. I think there are things about, I want to buy a house, I want to do these things, and I want to find a sense, like I want to find a core central ground of Eric Nam where I can kind of root everything.
Yeah.
But right now, just the way that my life works is that I'm literally traveling like 10 months out of the year. So it doesn't make sense for me to buy a house. And I know I can't do this forever, because I do want to settle down at some point.
Sure.
But right now, I think I still have a lot of the energy and the ambition and the optimism that I did when I started, to be like, we're going to keep going.
Right.
But more than anything, I'd like to think that over the past 10 years that I've been doing this, I've gained just wisdom, and in knowing that it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like every day is a new day, and there are very high highs, there are also very low lows. But if you hold on to yourself and the people around you, like, you'll get through it, and it works out. You just have to give yourself that time and that perseverance to get through it. So that's probably the biggest change that I think that I've picked up on in my career,
Right.
I guess.
Wise words from Eric Nam. So we're unfortunately down to our last question.
Okay.
So you spoke of traveling. You have a world tour coming up.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that and what you're looking forward to there?
Yeah. So I start world tour mid-September. We are going to hit probably about 80-something shows around the world. And it's going to be a lot of fun. We have, a full band. We have our dancers. We are in the process of finalizing our stage design. trying to bring a house on a hill to life on stage is not an easy thing to do. So we're trying to figure that out. But more than anything, I'm very excited to be on stage, to see fans, to connect with them, to party with them, because that's what I love to do the most. So I'm very excited, just trying to get as physically, emotionally, mentally fit as possible
Right.
for what will be a long, long tour. But I'm so excited. So if you're around, please come hang out.
We will. And any last message to our Filipino viewers?
Yeah, I really truly love coming to the Philippines. It is a place that I feel is so warm, and the people here are so kind and generous and loving, and I always feel the love. If not only in person, always online as well, because some of my Filipino fans are just so passionate, and I truly, truly appreciate all of you. And I hope you're healthy, I hope you're well, and I hope to see you in person again very, very soon. So thank you for always welcoming me with open arms. But I love you guys, and I'll see you very soon.
Right. Thank you so much, Eric, for guesting on Rappler Talk Entertainment.
Thank you. Appreciate the thoughtful questions, and thank you for
Oh,
your
thank
time.
you. Yay. I'm glad. Okay, so thank you guys for watching. This has been Marguerite De Leon. Thanks again.